Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for arriving into this online gathering. Wherever you're joining us from, we invite you to take a breath, settle in, and arrive just as you are. My name is Stacy Gunther, and together with my co-facilitator Konstantin Weicht and Danielle Nitschka, our tech host for this session, I'm delighted to welcome you to session 17, the role of mystical experiences, forgiveness, and gratefulness in management research. This session, of course, is part of our 2026 MSR Research Colloquium, The Mystical and Research Dwelling in the Threshold of Knowing, and it's organized by the MSR Research Committee. Before we begin, a brief technical note. If you experience any technical issues during the session, please just contact Daniel with a direct message through the chat, and he will support you. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speakers, Gaëtan Mourmant, Anil Maheshwari, Diljeet Kaur Varma, Soumya Dutta, and Anita Mendiratta. We're so happy to have this wonderful group of presenters who represent a leading MSR group working on forgiveness in organizations from around the world. That's how they describe themselves, and they'll tell you a little bit more as they present. And with that, I warmly welcome all five of you and invite us all the participants into the session with curiosity, presence, and openness to what may emerge at the threshold of knowing. Over to you, Anil.
Thank you, Stacy. Welcome everyone to this beautiful colloquium, and welcome again to our co-presenters. So let's, again, what we were doing earlier, let's take a deep breath, close our eyes, sit up straight. This is a session about forgiveness. Very deep phenomenon. Couple more deep breaths. Okay. Okay. So we are here to have fun. Hopefully you'll have fun with us. Okay, we'll have joy. Hopefully you'll all have joy with us. So the plan is to take half of our time to present our respective thoughts. Each one will present one big idea around forgiveness, one big angle, and we'll end with a poem. And then we will have a little bit of chit chat amongst us if we feel like. And then we'll have about 10 minutes of breakout groups where we will have a prompt for you all to discuss, and then we'll debrief, and then we'll close. And we'll try to come up with one takeaway lesson from this session. So you will remember that forgiveness session said this. Fair enough? With that, let me share my charts. And these charts are not mine, I mean, our charts. Okay. So this is the chart deck. So it's mystical forgiveness and gratefulness. We added gratefulness because we'll just tell you in a moment. So welcome again. My name is Anil Maheshwari. I'm a professor at Maharishi International University in Iowa, and I'm also the chair-elect for MSR. Soumya, do you want each one describe yourself in one line, please?
Yeah, I am Shukmo Datta. I am a fifth-year doctoral student of SGHM SOM IIT Bombay. My area of research is OBHR.
Thank you.
And
Diljeet?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Myself, I'm Diljeet Kaur Varma, and I'm an associate professor in Delhi University, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar College.
Thank you.
Hi
Anita?
everyone. Hi everyone. I'm Professor Anita Mendiratta. I'm professor at Keshav Mahavidyalaya, University of Delhi, India. Thank you. Ethan?
Hi everyone, I'm Gaëtan Mourmant. I'm studying the intersection of AI spirituality, in this case forgiveness, and all the mystical experience we can think about, and I love grounded theory.
Yeah, so that's why gratitude is here. It sort of goes with it. So now you heard this, welcome, you heard the two errors human to forgive divine, right? So why do we need to be divine to forgive? There's something mystical, magical about forgiving. If forgiving was that easy, that normal, we won't be studying it here. But it's very important. So that's why we chose this topic. Okay. Okay, so some of the topics will be, and this is respectively five of us will speak, who forgives? So we'll talk about levels of self. Is the one who forgives may not be the same as the one who's forgiven. Why forgive? Again, what is the benefit and the moral arc? We'll present you a beautiful forgiveness matrix, which you won't have imagined. Fantastic, courtesy our wonderful Diljeet. Then a little bit in the business and economic sense, what are sort of what's needed for how does forgiveness help the organizations or institutions? We'll talk about notion of moral credit, and then Gaëtan will talk about how accurate perception helps bring about forgiveness, and then we'll have a poem about one-page poem, very nice poem, and then as I said, we'll go from there. Okay, so what is forgiveness? Our basic definition is giving up the hope of a better past and reclaiming the freedom to live fully in the present. Isn't that amazing? That we all carry the burden of the past a lot, and then we are not able to live fully in the present. And gratefulness, actually, the ability to sort of enjoy the gifts of the present, worthy of appreciation, saying here and now. I'm grateful for these things now, here and now. My gratefulness is almost always for being alive, right? So life itself is the greatest gift. So just a little bit different forgiveness and gratefulness. Now, so this is my part of two. So each one will have just 2 or 3 charts, not more than that. And because we want to just keep it very simple, not simplistic, simple. We have rehearsed it a lot over many months, and then we have come to just key concepts which we want to present to you. So forgiveness means that we are going to forgive from higher consciousness. What's higher consciousness? It's a level where we are pure being, pure existence. We know that at some level, at this level, currently we are talking in waking consciousness, we are individual human beings, we are separate. We appear separate, but we know that at some level we are all one, or we are interconnected. In all traditions we have heard that, and we've seen in the presentations yesterday also that people have said that at some level there's oneness. And that oneness is never born, nor does it die. Bhagavad Gita says the self or Atman is unborn and undying. Na jayate mriyate vakatachat, means never is it born or dies. So the oneness is perennial, but our individual existence comes and goes like waves in an ocean. Now, how do we reach that thing? So the 2 levels, kind of one above the other. So here is my V theory, which some may be fully aware of or somewhat aware of. I've been talking for almost a decade now about it, ever since it was invented. It came to me. So the idea is that we are living at this level of surface reality existence where we are who we are. We are, red and white, and green and blue, and like billiard balls. We are big and small, and man and woman, all that stuff. And we do go through our life in the surface reality. Something goes. So if we can find a technique or a tool going to go inward, this is called the inward stroke, when transcend to the absolute. At that point, our thoughts begin to sort of go thinner and thinner, smaller and smaller, more subtler and subtler, and then we're able to gradually connect with pure consciousness, which is pure order, negative entropy, pure stillness, and it's a unified field of all the laws of nature. So which means that everything that is at the subtlest level, that is all in consciousness. Consciousness is all there is. And we stay there for some time, and then we come back up, return to the relative through what you will just outward stroke. If you went into the ocean, depth of the ocean, you can come up like that, or whichever way you want to imagine. If you went in a little bit tired, more confused, more frazzled, you might come back more coherent, more clear, more energized. That is, so you are even coming a little ahead. The V theory is called V. When I heard Otto Scharmer describe his U theory, it's from MIT 10 years ago, and then at that moment I felt that V is faster than U theory. The V, you can say for V for Vedic theory, V for theory of victory over ourselves, we as collectiveness, we are one at the bottom, or we beyond U theory. There are various ways of looking at this. Now, what is connotations? So in Hindi, when we talk, then I never liked the word consciousness. It's really too big, and at least in the Western science, it's a sort of afterthought because it's such a big word, consciousness, because the most important words are usually shorter, right? Like the word I in English is like about me is so short. So the idea that we have a big word, consciousness, I found that when I heard Maharishi in Hindi, he says that's man, and man becoming Atman. Is the sound of infinity. So man is untranslatable, but it means mind, it means memories, it means emotions, it means almost all kinds of intellect things that we can talk of. And so that is man. So when we're operating at the man is chanchal, means man is like always going up and down. We get excited, we get depressed, all that stuff. But when we get down to is the sound of infinity, like that. When we are excited, we say So Atman, so is just to do Sandhi join. So man can become Atman. Atman means the soul, the self, the higher self, which means the higher self, the soul is not something out there like, oh, where is my soul? I am the soul. When I settle down, I am the soul. So that is the way you can do, and you can be the Brahman, and that's what Vedanta says. I am the Brahman. I am the pure consciousness, and this is what it is. We can reach this. So at this level, up there, we are dealing with toys, colorful toys, big toys, small time, more money, more fame, more papers, more presentations, etc. And here it's pure joy. So this is like just pure existence, blissful, unencumbered by any burdens. Up here, it's about doing. So action, and then here is about knowing, and then I've just add a little bit more to my presentation on this one. I said it's all about money. Money means like jewels, but also in English you say money. So if you stay at the horizontal, very often you get entangled in the money. E is the sound of entanglement, also going deep and embedding into something. So our life once we get into money, etc., it's hard to get out of it. But if you take off from that a little bit and keep on transcending to the Atman, then our life is more joyful. So that is the idea of the basic gratefulness is coming from that deeper self, which is able to see the oneness in us all, that we are all one. Okay, at this point, thank you very much, and I will pass it on to Soumya, who will talk about the Hindi word Shama.
Thank you, sir. I would like to begin with a true story from nearly 150 years ago. My ancestor Nitya Niranjan Ghosh met Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, one of the India's greatest spiritual teachers. On one occasion, Sri Ramakrishna told Niranjan, if you do 99 good deeds and one wrong deeds for a person, the person may remember only the wrong. But if you do 99 wrong deeds and performs one act of sincere love for God, God remembers only the love. Through this teaching, Sri Ramakrishna highlighted the difference between the human judgment and divine grace. But this raises an important question. How do we express our love for God? An answer can be found in the ancient Indian text, the Agni Puran, which describes 8 flowers that are dear to divine. Ahingsha prathamam pushpam, pushpam indriya nigraham, sharva bhuto daya pushpam, khama pushpam visheshata, jnana pushpam tapo pushpam, shanti pushpam tathaivacha, shattam ashtavidam pushpam, vishnu pritikaram bhavit. Ahimsa, the non-violence. Indriya nigraha, the control of the senses. Sarva Bhute Daya, the compassion for all living beings. Shama, forgiveness. Jnanam, knowledge. Tapas, austerity or meditation. Santi, peace. And Satyam, truth. These 8 flowers form a pathway of inner growth. This pathway is both sequential and circular. We may begin with the first flower, ahimsa, non-violence, simply because we are told it is a good virtue. But the deeper reason for non-violence becomes clearer only when we reach the final flower, the satyam and truth. At this stage, we realize that all beings are deeply connected. The same reality expresses itself through different forms. When we truly understand this truth, harming another becomes similar to harming ourselves. This realization gives non-violence a deeper meaning. Today, however, my focus on the 4th flower, the Shama and forgiveness. According to the Agni Purana, forgiveness cannot bloom in our heart without the first 3 flowers, ahimsa, the non-violence, indriya nigroha, the self-control, and sarva bhuta daya, the compassion for all living beings. When we avoid harming others, control our impulses, and develop compassion, forgiveness naturally becomes possible. The text also suggests that forgiveness is the gateway to the next flower, jnanam or knowledge. In other words, Shama, forgiveness, is not just a moral virtue, it is a step towards the wisdom or self-understanding. Next slide. Now let us see how this applies for organizational life. This is the same progression can be observed in healthy organization. Respectful communication creates non-toxic workplace. This supports the emotional regulation and impulse control in leaders. Emotional regulation enables empathy and concern for employees and stakeholders. Empathy makes forgiveness possible, especially during conflicts and mistakes. And forgiveness in turn creates the psychological safety and a learning culture that is essential for innovation, ethical decision-making, sustainable growth, and people-centered leadership. I would like to conclude my part with a very simple thought. In personal life, without forgiveness, it is difficult to truly know ourselves. And in organizational life, without forgiveness, it is difficult to create a learning culture. Therefore, Shama, forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It is a bridge between compassion and wisdom. It is a bridge between human relationships and organizational excellence. Now my part is, I over to Diljeet.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Soumya. Very well put. So I'll start by going back to McCullough et al., who said that there are 2 types of nature of forgiveness. One type of nature is the spiritual or the transcendental one, and the other is the social, psychological nature of forgiveness. More specifically, it can also be said to have 2 dimensions, an internal mental emotional state and an interpersonal act. So this leads us to 4 types of forgiveness situations. We can have dissonance, hurting hearts. We can have disappointment, disappointed heart. We can have compassion, a compassionate heart. And we can also have finally a blissful situation with blissful hearts. So drawing on the I'm okay, you're okay framework and transactional analysis, so we envision a forgiveness matrix as an integrative framework. So this can serve as a guide to help us introspect and improve interpersonal relationships through forgiveness, whether at a personal level or even organizational level. And we begin from the undesirable scenario of dissonance at the very least, or conflict. So both parties are so hurt that they both are unwilling to ask or give forgiveness. So a very explosive situation. To break this logjam, now there can be 3 alternative pathways. From 1 to 2 to 4, moving towards right and then up, or 1, 2, 3 to 4, moving up and towards right, or directly from 1 to 4, the fast track, if you will. In the second scenario, the one on the right, which is disappointment, only one person becomes willing to ask for forgiveness. However, the aggrieved is still so hurt, he can't overcome their hurt and forgive the other. Hopefully, they'll need more time and then they'll be able to move towards that. Now, which can be a little disappointing for the transgressor. Not a perfect scenario, but still an improvement, at least over the first one. In the third scenario, compassion. The aggrieved offers the olive branch of forgiveness to the other. But here, the transgressor is still not ready to let go and ask for forgiveness, if at all. Again, not a perfect scenario, but still an improved one over the first scenario, with at least one compassionate heart in the interpersonal relationship. We move on to the final ultimate scenario, which is the blissful scenario. So both parties are able to tap into their inner consciousness, transcend their consciousness, go deep inside, and both are able to ask for forgiveness and reciprocate with forgiveness. As a result, two people who win each other's hearts through forgiveness, leading to a blissful situation. Sounds so good. But we know it's not that easy. Just like Anil sir said, it's not an easy task. So how do we facilitate this process of healing and forgiveness? So one way out could be practicing gratitude. So feelings of gratitude may act as a moral motivation for the grateful to behave in a more compassionate manner in the future towards others. Conversely, that can also be true. Receiving forgiveness may also lead to a grateful heart. And when we talk about gratitude leading to forgiveness, reminds me of a very heartening story from history. And I realized that it becomes all the more endearing to me as my grandfather, he was a freedom fighter. And after independence, he was honored by the Prime Minister of India for his contributions. So all the more endearing to me. So we go back about 300 years ago. Wazir Khan, the tyrannical Mughal Nawab of Sirhind in Punjab near Delhi, had executed the two little sons, aged just 7 and 9, of the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, as the kids refused to change their faith. However, Sher Muhammad Khan, the Nawab of Malerkotla, a nearby region, was the only one who protested, saying that killing innocent kids, it goes against the principles of Islam, and he would not like to be a party of this. And in disgust, he just walks away from that place. Deeply moved, the Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he sent him a letter of gratitude and also a sword of honor, which is still preserved by their family. So consequent to this, the Guru made attempts towards peace and seeking justice from the new Mughal emperor, but he was only disappointed, so seeking no way out. So Banda Singh Bahadur, his new disciple, he was a saint, and he had turned into a warrior with the guidance of the Guru, and he set on this mission for justice and fight against atrocities. Upon vanquishing all the various areas in Punjab, and then he finally reached Sirhind, and he vanquished that area also. And finally, he ensured the last rights of the two little Sahibzadas with human dignity, finally, after a long time. But the point over here is, amidst all of this conflict, there was only one area, one district, Malerkotla, which stayed untouched from all of this conflict and peace, and it stayed peaceful in a gesture of forgiveness based on gratitude, because it was the Nawab of that area who had stood against the tyranny of the Nawab over there. And this heartful story of gratitude and forgiveness, it is still commemorated and remembered even today. So this gives us some insights into, provides us some guidance on how we can set out on this path towards a very, very difficult task of forgiveness and gratitude. So with this, I think I'll need to close my part, and now I request Anita to elaborate on the moral motivations phenomena.
Yeah, thanks, Diljeet. That was wonderful story and wonderful metrics. This slide explains forgiveness to the idea of a bank. So, because I'm a finance scholar, so I related forgiveness with finance and economics, some bit of economics here. Just like we deposit money into bank, people also deposit goodness into relationships through their actions. For example, kindness, care, sport, respect, honesty, helping behavior, passion, and emotional presence. So these all become moral credits. Now imagine a professor in a department who has always guided students patiently, helped her colleagues, supported her students during difficult times. On one stressful day, due to some pressure or exhaustion, the professor reacts harshly to her students. So they may say she is usually a very supportive person, a very good person. Maybe she is having a difficult day today. So instead of judging the person only through one mistake, observers also remember years of goodness. That past goodness acts like emotional saving in a moral bank. As a result, people may excuse the behavior, understand the situation, and continue seeing the person as good overall. In many ways, these emotional memories acted like moral credits. So psychologically, moral credits help soften present situation and create greater compassion, acceptance, emotional understanding, and willingness to forgive. Next slide, please. So these are the pathways in moral credit. On the left side, we say moral credit is present. On the right side, it's not present. So on the left side, we see a happy child. Imagine a father who has always cared deeply for his family, spent time with his children, and supported them during difficult moments. One day, due to a bad day at work or physical illness, he speaks harshly to them. The family feels hurt, but they also remember years of love and sacrifice. So they might think he didn't really mean it. He has always been there for us. The observer's heart softens and the doer feels understood, and forgiveness becomes emotionally easier. That is why the image is joyful and light-hearted. On the other hand, the right side, we see a child carrying a heavy bucket under the hot sun. This image represents emotional heaviness. Imagine a relationship where trust has repeatedly been broken and there are few positive memories to emotionally balance the hurt. The observer may still try to forgive, but emotionally it feels drained out, difficult, and heavy. Just like the child carrying the bucket under the hot sun, both the observer and the doer may continue carrying emotional burden. However, at the same time, this framework does not mean that people without moral credit should never be forgiven. So that is important catch here. So rather, moral credit represents one important psychological aspect that can influence how observers emotionally process mistakes and forgiveness. So when observers remember past kindness, care, honesty, compassion, they're more likely to emotionally soften the impact of present mistakes and continue seeing the person as fundamentally good. So moral credit acts like emotional cushioning in relationship, helping observers excuse, understand, and forgive more easily. So I would say that moral credits are like pathways through which individuals gradually develop the emotional and cognitive conditions that make deeper compassion and even mystical experiences more likely. For instance, the same child gradually might think that my father was not perfect. He struggled, just like I. We are both imperfect human beings. So this framework suggests that when moral credits are present, observers often experience less emotional resistance and greater willingness to forgive because it represents important pathway through which forgiveness may emerge. And it might encourage individuals to recall the good deeds, sacrifices, and positive intentions of others and can cultivate gratitude, empathy, and compassion in return. So that's the idea behind it. So I
Thank
would
you.
like to request Gaëtan now to present his charts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
By the way, this dog is our sixth presenter.
I wish she was with me on my laps. I was planning that, but it's too much chaos, so I will just let it go on this one. We're going to look at a psychological term which is called cognitive reappraisal, and I'll try to lay it down to something easier. Maybe you can take a few seconds, recall a minor event where you know that forgiveness is needed. And I'm just going to tell you my story with my little dog. So we were just at the end of a walk, and then she saw a beautiful, beautiful bone on the floor, and then she started to take it. Then, of course, me being very innocent, my first dog, second dog, but really my first one, I tried to take the bone out, and she put. But okay, so my first perception was like, no, she's so cute. She's so gentle. She's never going to bite me. Of course, she's going to love me all my life and etc., which I think is true. But at the same time, I took a step back and kind of cognitively reappraised the situation. And the other interpretation is, well, she's been growing from wolves. At the origin, dogs were wolves, and then gradually becoming. And so she has this wild aspect in her. So just that thought helped me a lot to immediately forgive her for that behavior. Of course, I can try to correct, but I know that I shouldn't take a dog from a bone from a dog mouth. So this accurate perception made forgiveness immediate. Next slide. If we could look at a couple of key concepts, inaccurate expectation creates shock when reality differs. Can tell you when she bite me, the shock was real. Perception shapes expectation. So my perception of the situation of what a dog should be created that expectation she will not bite me, but then my expectation was not met, so I had to work through that. And at the same time, taking a step forward helped me to refine my perception to make forgiveness easier. So let's next slide, and I'm going to explain where meditation can be there. That's another instance where I had to do some forgiveness. The person on the right is really angry. But I was witnessing that with someone very close to me, and then he came out of the stairs and he was like, oh. And usually I will be affected by it because I'm sometimes an emotional sponge, especially with people very close to me. But then at that time, for some reason, I was just sitting and I was very calm. I was probably doing some kind of meditation. And I was just witnessing this person going down, down. And for the first time in my life, and I've been very close to that person, for the first time in my life, I can see the anger without being impacted by it. And it helped me a lot because it's almost like connecting to the soul of the person, witnessing that soul having this experience of anger, and also understanding from my perspective that that was not my experience unless I want to have that experience. And that helped a lot to forgive that person. So based on that, it helped me to forgive almost a lifetime of anger projected, not necessarily to me, but anger expressing itself. And on that note, I invite you to go back to your little minor event, connect to your soul,
Thank you.
and just
Thank you.
forgive that person.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Gaëtan. You talked of a very good personal instance, and Soumya, you talked a moral arc or moral sort of domain, and Anita, you talked a moral credit, and Diljeet, you gave a beautiful moral story, and also gave us 2x2 matrix of the various situations of forgiving, and then I spoke about this idea of higher consciousness, from which I believe you forgive, that the person who forgives is not the same as the one who is forgiven, because we are all capable of becoming the higher consciousness. We have to let go. So this is a last thing. We want to just, if you want to just read it with me, letting go. And courtesy Diljeet, she found this poem, letting go. We must let go of those hurtful things that burn and hiss and bite and sting, that hurt the heart and clip our wings, where we can't fly and we can't sing. I think it's time to turn the page, turn to the light and quiet the rage. Forgive the slides we cannot change, and spread our wings to escape this cage. Thank you very much. So this is the idea of letting go, and we will let you all go into small, how are we doing with time? So any thoughts, comments on hearing all five? Any just 30-second comments, all five of you? Anybody? How do you feel? Quick impression. How I feel is very good. I already summarized, which is that 5 very different perspectives, all still around this idea of morality, etc. And so we don't want to take questions right now. If it's okay, we'll do it all the discussion after the breaks, because we have 32 people. Okay. So from here, anybody, any thoughts, questions?
Analyze it, Anil.
I feel grateful actually grateful for this presentation. And I think I have also found a way to forgiveness um, uh, and overcoming several grudges that I might be having. So I'm indebted to you all for this beautiful, beautiful,
So
beautiful
glad at least
presentation.
one found it very wonderful. It'll be all. And then we'll have more discussion during the breakout things. And Ravi, you want to quickly go in? 30 seconds.
Yeah, this is a very important topic in today's world. So there's so much conflict going around. And if you are striving as a humanity for solidarity, what you're suggesting is so relevant and significant. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we'll why don't we go into breakout groups? Is that okay? Anita, Diljeet? Unless you have
Yes,
something.
yes,
Okay.
perfect.
So we'll be into 5 groups. One of us will be in there. The prompt is please share your own forgiveness story or your personal perspective on forgiveness. And we'll all share in groups of probably 6 each, 6, 7 each. And then we'll come back. You please designate one person as the debriefer, reporting person. And it will not be one of us. It will just make sure it's somebody else. And then we'll hear the debriefings or lessons learned from each of your session. And then we'll have a nice discussion to come up with one single point of learning from all of these 5.